AskReddit by just around 2108. What is the adult version of finding out that Santa Claus doesn't exist? When both your parents die. I am in my mid-50s and had my mom pass on Mother's Day 22. My dad then was living with us from then, and eventually reached in-home hospice status with a certain stage IV cancer diagnosis. He died in January of this year, and then I got laid off from my tech job and was unemployed for 10 months. Nothing takes the wonderment and positive outlook from the world than having to empty out your childhood home solo and throw everything you grew up with into a big dumpster and are left to wonder what our lives really mean. I'm in the process of dismantling my childhood home right now. I've compared it to dismembering the dead body of a loved one. It's really rough. When you buy an 8-piece Tupperware set, 4 of the pieces are lids. Same with pots and pans. What a rip-off. Finding out that your parents are people, too, with weaknesses or flaws that you were blind to when you were young. And the day you suddenly notice how old they are. When their mortality finally hits you. Being a hard worker and good at your job doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be rewarded for it. And the laziest person at work is allowed to be lazy, but the hardest worker isn't allowed a break. That some friends were never really your friend. Also that friendships can end just like any relationship. I thought I'd grow up, move out, find my footing in the grown-up world and basically switch into cruise mode. Now I'm in my 40s and shit is confusing as fuck. Deleted. Sometimes there is no justice. My ex murdered my 10-month-old son and got 15-30 years. First shot at the parole board was 2020, and it was rubber stamped. She's out now after serving the minimum, for drowning an infant for insurance money. When you realize basically everyone is just faking it till they make it. Still faking it, waiting for the make it part. When I was a kid I thought adults had everything figured out and couldn't wait to grow up so I could be like them. Ha. When I was a kid, I thought adulthood would be much different. Now that I'm an adult, I won't believe that again, at least for my childhood. For me it was realizing the high school mindset in people never end, see it in 60-year-olds in Facebook now. It's actually infuriating when you're in a work environment and the people that work there still all act like high school students. Joe's sitting around looking at his phone. Boss, so I'm not going to work either. Brittany looked at me. Tell her to stop. Frank farted in the break room. You need to write him up for being disgusting. That time period when your relationship switches and your parent looks to you for answers and advice, instead them being the one with all the answers. Not sure about that one. Dad simultaneously says I'm the smartest person he knows and I don't know how to do anything, lol. Working full time and being too drained to chase your actual dream. You guys have dreams? I just don't want to be in pain every waking moment. You never actually feel like the adult. When you look around for a more adult-like adult and realize you're the adultist on there. Finding out that someone you have looked up to and admired your entire life is actually a horrible person. Had this moment with a close friend last year and my life will never be the same. You have to routinely think, hey, if I just met this person would we be friends? If the answer is no, you have to seriously reevaluate your friendship. That going to college and getting a 9-5 wasn't going to be the fun, creative, latte-filled experience rom-coms would have you believe. And that getting a 9-5 means that you will actually get to stop working at 5. Finding out that reaching retirement is about hitting a financial number and not reaching an age. Also finding out that this financial target is much harder to reach than you will lead to believe, and it gets worse every year. $500 isn't a lot of money. I believe the saying is something like, $1,000 isn't a lot to have, but it's a lot though. Credit scores were invented in the 90s. What question mark? Finding out people without empathy exist. And they are hard to pin down even after many years of exposure to them. Just toxic people in general. People will be mean for no reason and think it's funny. Tell them anything personal and they use it against you. I had a lady 20 years older than me brag about insulting her husband to his face. My dudes, have you tried not being an asshole? Realizing that no, we can't have McDonald's, cause there is food in the freezer. This cuts deep. There are no hot singles in your area. Actually there are, but they sure as fuck aren't interested in me. Unless they charge. That working harder does not equal getting paid more or being promoted. I learned being good at my job prevented me from a promotion because the company needed me in that role. Spending time trying to understand why something happened often doesn't lead to answers, and can only prolong your healing process. Sometimes closure is moving forward and not ruminating or trying to figure out why. A bachelor's degree is not a coupon redeemable for one full-time job in your field of choice after graduation. Neither is a master's. Most of the relationships in the teen dramas you loved would actually be toxic as hell in real life. Didn't watch much of them, but Twilight come to mind first. My god, Edward seemed so mysterious back then. Now it's like, dude, you don't need to be gloomy. Learning that two people can love each other more than anything in this world and still not be a good fit for a long-term relationship. True and pure love isn't always enough. And sometimes people do make a good, or at least bearable, lifelong team without having true undying romantic love for each other. For me it was finding out those HGTV shows are all more or less staged. I have an aunt that worked in production in a couple big reality TV shows. Completely shattered the illusion. HR is not on your side. HR works for the company. Never forget that. Realizing you'll probably never have the aha moment that tells you what you want to do with your life and you'd better just pick the least depressing choice. Realizing that you can be anything you want is far from true. Opportunity rarely drops itself freely at your doorstep. You've got to keep your eyes open for when opportunity shows itself, be prepared, and available for when it does show up at your door. Realizing just how high the deductible is on your insurance. Learning what it means to have a deductible. When you finish eating your dinner and there is no magical person to wash the dishes and you have to wash them yourself. I've only lived in a house with a dishwasher for 2 years out of my nearly 40, and that was 20 years ago. My kitchen now is too small to fit one. We don't make a ton of dirty dishes usually, but sometimes I'm amazed at how many one meal uses, and I really wish we had one, lol. That the filter on the water jug doesn't count down to replacement based on usage, it's just a timer. That the world doesn't stop when someone you love and need dies. Finding out that you're getting older, which means getting uglier, less mobile, worse health, etc. You can delay poor health to an extent, but one way or another, it's coming for us all. Do you write horror books? This was so ominous. That your boss probably didn't get where they are because they did your job well. I've had the pleasure of being too good at my job to be promoted. It happened for sure once at a previous employer, and I believe another time recently at my current employer. To great shock to the company, I quit for a better job somewhere else. That fruits and veggies expire much faster if you pay for it yourself. The full quote, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. William S. Also, Chuck Norris admitted to using stunt doubles. As a millennial, I was raised to believe that going to college and getting a degree would guarantee me a good future job that would allow me to live comfortably. It's also ridiculous that to be a receptionist you need a 4-year degree. Doesn't pay enough to pay off the loans and doesn't require that much education. Deleted. Working hard will get you advancement in the company. In reality, being a hard worker keeps you exactly where you are. Management will keep you churning out the good work you do without ever paying you any more than they do, and it make them look good. Finally owning a house, then realizing you now have to go through the effort and expense of maintaining it. It's great you've got a house for $100k, now enjoy saving and spending at least half that to stop it crumbling, leaking or falling down over the next decades. House for $100k cries that won't even buy an empty block of land here. Having to pay tax instead of getting a tax return. First time this happened to me as a teenager shattered my heart. I had so many plans. My father always told me you want to owe money at tax time, because that means the government effectively gave you an interest-free loan and you can take advantage of that. If you get a refund, that means you gave the government an interest-free loan. Recycling is, for the most part, a scam by corporations to move the physical and emotional weight of dealing with the harm their packaging causes off them and onto you. Plastic recycling is a scam. Aluminum recycling is very real, because making new aluminum from ore is quite expensive. Glass bottles should really be reused, not recycled. That there are no adults. Everyone's just doing their best. Finding out your mom sleeps around. Just your mom though, mine's a saint. Christmas bonuses almost never exist. Worse fantasy than the clause. I used to work at Atkinson Toyota in College Station, Texas. The owner came through the shop at Christmas time and gave us an envelope with $100 cash in it. Then when we got our pay stub there was a deduction for Christmas bonus of $100. Realizing nothing is free. Discovering all the shows and movies you loved as a child were crap, and you just enjoyed them because you didn't know any better. I'd add food to that list, too. There's a lot of crap I used to like as a kid just because I didn't have the palate to realize there were better versions. Finding out it's the pole that spins, not the stripper. Excuse me. Discovering that the special recipe for a dish that your parents have always made was just on the back of one of the ingredients packages.